this afternoon is a very important issue. It seems like a lot more people feel like the issue has died out, but we know very well that in a few months to come, it is going to be the biggest issue in the world once again. But before it gets so serious and so busy, let's use our critical lenses to analyze the situation and then see what we will be waiting for in the future ahead. Now, will South Africa be able to trigger Putin's arrest? Would they trigger the warrant of arrest issued by the ICC against Putin when Putin arrives in South Africa for the BRICS summit? Right? It is confidentially confirmed that Putin is definitely coming to the BRICS summit. He's going to be one of the top 5 leaders in the summit. Well, before we proceed with anything, I would like to quote a certain author by the name Samuel Huntington. And he made a certain quote in one of his books by title Clash of the Civilizations. And he said, quote, "The West won the world not by the superiority of its ideas, values, or religion, but rather by its superiority in applying organized violence. Westerners often forget this fact. Non-Westerners never do," unquote. I believe as we go through this series, you are going to understand the very reason why I needed to quote Samuel Huntington before I proceed with anything on the table for today. Right. On the 17th of March 2023, the pre-trial chamber 2 of the International Criminal Court, that is popularly known as the ICC, issued a certain warrant of arrest for 2 people concerning the situation in Ukraine. And these 2 people were Mr. Vladimir Putin and Ms. Maria Lvova-Belova, who happens to be the Commissioner for Children's Rights in the office of the President of the Russian Republic. Now, they say, usually they call it Russian Federation, right? Okay, so for purposes of correction, we can say Russian Federation. Now, we are particularly interested in Vladimir Putin's case. So we're going to put our lenses and critical analysis right on him and the issues surrounding him in connection with this warrant of arrest. Now, he's alleged to be responsible for war crimes of unlawful deportation of children and that of the transfer of some of these children from a certain specific occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation under specific article of the Rome Statute. Now, interestingly, Russia as a country was a signatory to the Rome Statute, but they withdrew in somewhere around 2016, and then their reason was that they did not recognize the jurisdiction of the court. That is one interesting thing. The other interesting thing about this issue is that Ukraine, that happens to be the one that reported the case to the ICC, is not itself a signatory to the ICC. However, it did go ahead, okay, to report the Russian people and the president of the country to the ICC for further investigation for possible war crimes committed on its territory. Now, the ICC chief prosecutor, in the person of Karim Khan, visited Ukraine 4 times over the past year. And out of those 4 visits, they were able to pass a certain ruling that there are reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Putin has individual criminal responsibility for child abduction in Ukraine. The ruling and further issue of warrant of arrest then took immediate effect. Okay, now this particular ruling further, gave them the opportunity to then issue a warrant of arrest for Putin. All right, and this particular decision divided the world into two. There were people who were so much against the fact that a warrant of arrest has been issued against Putin, and there are others who are extremely happy to also see that happen for different various reasons. Now, one thing that many are trying to do is that a lot of people are trying to come to terms with the swift nature in which Putin's case was investigated, and yet that of Afghanistan and Iran are still under examination from as far back as 2015. As a matter of reference, on the 12th of April 2019, the pre-trial Chamber 2 of the International Criminal Court rejected unanimously the request of the prosecutor to proceed with an investigation for alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes in Afghanistan. The chamber believed that, notwithstanding the fact that all the relevant requirements were met regarding jurisdiction and admissibility, the prospect for a successful investigation and prosecution in the Afghan case specifically was extremely limited. So the chamber then concluded that an investigation into the situation in Afghanistan at that stage wouldn't serve the interest of justice, and therefore rejected the prosecutor's request for authorization to investigate the case. The chamber then concluded that investigation is not going to take effect. And this is what is actually beating people's imagination, because people are drawing a certain opinion regarding the interest of the ICC itself and trying to figure out what makes certain crime more attractive to them than other crimes that are of the same wavelength, if you like. Now, is Putin going to be arrested even though he is an existing head of state? That's one other question that a lot of people are asking because of state immunity, and people try to give several answers, but we're going to look at it in a very holistic way, right? So let's look at that immunity itself. What happened to heads of state with immunity? But it is believed that the ICC does not recognize immunity for heads of state in cases that involve war crimes, crime against humanity, or genocide. So any crime that falls within these three crimes, the issue of state immunity is not considered for anybody that finds himself in trouble. Now, that makes the chances of arresting Putin a very strong possibility, isn't it? Yes, because if Putin is a president, but the crime is a war crime, and he does not enjoy immunity, then he can be arrested at any point in time. But will that really happen? Wait a minute. And let's look at some examples, some scenarios surrounding arresting people that has been issued with a warrant of arrest by the same ICC. Didn't South Africa decline to enforce an ICC warrant for the arrest of the Sudanese dictator Omar al-Bashir in 2015? It's a question we're asking, a very critical question. And when South Africa refused to arrest al-Bashir, what was the reason the state gave to people who were asking those questions? Okay? Al-Bashir, in the meantime, was charged with 5 counts of crime against humanity, 2 counts of war crimes, and 3 counts of genocide. Now, South Africa argued at the time that it saw no reason under the international law and the Rome Statute to arrest a 7th head of state, okay, of an ICC non-state party such as al-Bashir and several other countries that he also visited also declined to arrest him. Okay, so are they not, these countries that refused to arrest al-Bashir, were they not borrowing that clause of state immunity? Or are they only acting on the basis of the fact that al-Bashir was a non-ICC state? But if you listen to the South African reason clearly, it states that they borrowed the strength from the state immunity that president or heads of state enjoys. Now, another critical example is the Chilean dictator called, what is his name? Augusto Pinochet. He was also issued with an international warrant of arrest by a certain Spanish judge. Pinochet then claimed immunity as a former head of state on his visit to London in 1998. The claim was eventually rejected by the British court. Then the UK magistrate ruled in 1999 that Pinochet should be extradited to Spain. But what happened? That extradition never saw the light of day. It didn't happen. The then British Home Secretary, in the name of, or in the person of Jack Straw, allowed Pinochet to return home on grounds of ill health. Now, with those examples and many other critical reasoning and unanswered questions in the implementation of the international law, do you see Putin being arrested in South Africa during the BRICS summit in August? Well, from our critical lenses, we think anything is possible, but the possibility of Putin being arrested in South Africa is only a wishful dream and might not happen ever. Okay? Even if Putin is going to be arrested, it is not going to be in South Africa. The only, according to our own analysis, the only most likely way Putin will ever be arrested is when there is a new Russian leader, especially if that leader comes from the opposition, okay, who will then probably want to put Putin far away from state affairs so he can enjoy his presidency and also be able to rule the country without any interference. You see, if a new opposition leader comes and the person does that, it will also draw the West to that particular opposition leader, and it will give that person a certain leverage. So according to our own analysis, we believe that that particular act will be the only way Putin can be arrested.